Hey guys, coming at you today with a delicious fudgy moist brownie recipe. But because it's my birthday week, I gotta make this extra special. My favorite dessert of all time is tiramisu, but I've already done that. So I am going to make a delicious brownie bottom with a tiramisu cream on top. It's my big 3-4, which isn't a big milestone birthday, but it is my first keto birthday. So let's get started. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Alicia and I'm a sous chef with a sweet tooth. And here we make delicious keto pastries from my time as a pastry chef, and I want to make them the best possible keto variations I can. So if you enjoy this content, please hit the subscribe button down there. I'm joining you here every Saturday with a new keto dessert recipe. If you've ever made a brownie from scratch before, it's pretty similar to a regular brownie recipe. We're going to start by melting our baker's chocolate in the microwave. I'm going to do 30 seconds, keep checking it until it starts to melt, and then I'm going to add our butter. While that's going, I'm going to sift our dry ingredients. I love coconut flour. I prefer the texture over almond flour, so we're only using 2 tablespoons in here. Of course, I weigh all my ingredients out, especially with this little of an amount. It actually matters. A couple of grams, it'll be too thick, too thin. I also love my protein powder. The unflavored isopure is my go-to. It adds better texture to our baked goods in general. And if you don't know, you can use that to bread chicken and eggplant, whatever. You can use that as your flour, and it has no carbs, no flavor. You can season it up with whatever you want. So we're sifting that in there. And then of course, xanthan gum. It gives you a chew of a baked good that you wouldn't get because we have no gluten in our baked good. And a couple pinches of salt because I'm using salted butter. The recipe below will show you exactly what to put in if you're using unsalted butter. I found a Dutch processed cocoa, Ghirardelli, and it is 0 carbs. So that's what we're using in here. This gives it a really low carb count, and all that in. And I have some instant espresso powder, which is optional. I just think it brings out the flavor of the chocolate a little bit better. I'm gonna give it a little whisk. Combine that xanthan gum so it gets all evenly in there. So this brownie is pretty much a fat bomb in itself. It has 12 tablespoons of butter, but this makes it super moist and dense fudginess. Okay, so now that our chocolate has started to melt, we're gonna add in our butter. And I've already cut that up into like little pats of butter just so it melts a little bit easier. And it's been out at room temperature since last night. Just giving it a stir, it's almost there. Another 30 to a minute and it should be done. Duh, I almost forgot. This doesn't take very long to put together, so we gotta fire up our oven, 350 degrees. We have one little chunk of chocolate in there, but it is going to melt. It's already pretty warm. We don't want it too hot. And then I have a 9-inch springform pan because I want to make a cake out of this. So this makes it easier. I'm going to bake the brownie and then I'm going to add a layer of ganache and then the tiramisu cream on top of that. So this just makes it easier. I can pop it out and it'll be a nice round cake. And I have a piece of parchment paper already down in there. I'm just going to spray the edges with a little bit of coconut oil just to make sure that it releases well. I prefer powdered sweetener in baked goods because it's less grainy. You can just take your regular granular and put it in a coffee grinder or spice grinder and that'll work too. But trying to get this measured out, I was getting different results every time using a measuring cup. 1 cup of powdered sweetener should be 144 grams, and every time I used a cup measuring cup, I did not get that result. So that'll depend how sweet your brownies are. So just be mindful of that. Important step is to whip your eggs and your sugar together really well until light and fluffy, because otherwise your brownies will be grainy. I had one batch, I did not do it long enough, and it was so grainy and you could just taste the sugar. It was so sweet. So you got powdered monkfruit or erythritol, whatever you prefer. I'm adding in 2 eggs. I'm gonna beat that until it's super light and fluffy. About a minute. I'm actually gonna count to myself. And I give it a little mix first so that powdered sugar doesn't go everywhere. Doubled in volume. Next, we're going to be adding in our chocolate and butter mixture. As you're whipping, just stream this in. Of course, you want to scrape down your bowl and get all that goodness into here. Now I tried this recipe several times, and with just this, it was fudgy, but it was crumbly. It was almost like a piece of fudge you were eating, which is not what I wanted. I wanted a nice moist brownie. So I added sour cream, and that really made it fudgy and moist and soft. So I got that in here, a little bit of vanilla, and because we're using unsweetened cocoa powder, unsweetened baking chocolate, we need a little bit more sweetness still. So there's 1 teaspoon of liquid stevia, and you're gonna add that in next. You can sub out the baker's chocolate for a Lily's dark chocolate, but that does have some sweetness to it, so you can probably just leave out the stevia if you end up doing that. I just don't have any dark chocolate bars from Lily's, so I went with the baker's chocolate because that's what I had on hand. Whip that up, and then we got our dry ingredients, and that's it. Just pour in half at a time, because if you put it all in at once, it'll be really hard to get it nicely mixed because it gets really thick. Second half, try not to get it everywhere. Just until combined. You don't want to see any streaks of lighter chocolate in there. Good to go. Now, if I wasn't doing this with the extra layers and such, I would add Lily's milk chocolate chips to this. I did that in the first batch I did, and they were delicious. Or you can add some chopped nuts of some kind, just to give it some texture. I'm just not a plain brownie kind of gal. I like a lot of stuff on my stuff, because I'm a little extra. Spread this out super evenly, right to the edge. You can also do this in a 8x8 square pan, but funny thing is, I don't own one. I figured, why not make it into a cake for my birthday? And it gives me a reason to use my spring form. I think I've used it like 4 times. I'm gonna pop this in the oven, and the trick to brownies is to not overcook them, because then they will just get dry and crumbly and gross. So I'm gonna put this in the oven. I'm probably put it for 15, and then I'll turn it and check it and do maybe another 10 and see where we're at. Okay, so this time it only stayed in for 22 minutes. I did a toothpick test and it's pretty clean, but it looks like it's almost not cooked. This will continue to cook and get solid and fudgy. Hey, while this was cooling, I was cleaning up the edges. Any kind of batter that got on the edges, I don't want in my nice layered brownie tiramisu cake. This is still kind of warm, but I want to make sure it's going to release out of here before we do anything else. Making sure all the top edges are releasing. It all looks like it is. Make sure it'll unspring form. Yeah, it's stuck a little bit in some spots, but not too bad. Guess I should have given it more of a spray. We're gonna put this back in, tighten it back up again. Now it's on to making the ganache to put on top of this, and then we gotta chill it for a while until it's completely solid. Hardest part about baking is that you gotta wait for things to cool down. So I'm making an espresso ganache because tiramisu, it's espresso with like a cream and rum, and you put cocoa on top of it. So that's why I thought a brownie bottom would be delicious with it. There's a couple different ways to make ganache. I'm just making a very simple 1-to-1 ratio, chocolate to heavy cream. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of espresso powder. I'm using Lily's milk chocolate chips, which are the sweetest of all of them. You can go with any Lily's or sugar-free chocolate chip you prefer. I'm gonna pop my heavy cream in the microwave, and I'm just gonna heat it up 30-second intervals until it's just steaming on top. You can also do this just on the stove if you'd like. Okay, so 1.5 minutes was a little too long. It was bubbling up. But I'm gonna add in half a tablespoon of instant espresso powder. We're just gonna start there and see how we like it. It smells amazing already. We're just gonna pop in our chocolate chips. Make sure they're all submerged in the hot cream. Just let them sit for about 30 seconds until they start melting, and then we're gonna just whisk it all together. Have it, a nice smooth ganache. You're gonna want to let this cool down a little bit. We made it a little bit too hot, and I don't want it running all down the sides of the pan. I want to try it and make sure it has enough sweetness and enough coffee flavor. Tastes pretty much just like milk chocolate right now. I'm gonna add in another half a tablespoon. I was gonna add 1 full tablespoon to begin with, but I wasn't sure. Didn't want to make it too strong. You can always add more, you can't take away. Oh yeah, there's the coffee. That is delicious. Now we want it just to be pourable and almost hold its shape. So we're gonna wait a little bit longer, pour this onto our brownie. I popped my ganache into the refrigerator off and on, stirring constantly, trying to make sure it was the right consistency. Get onto our brownies as quick as possible because it was taking forever. But now you can see it's kind of thick and you can see streaks staying in the ganache. I'm not sure if we're gonna need all this, so I'm gonna start conservatively and not pour it all at once. But we're gonna start right in the middle, kind of around in circles. Trying to keep it kind of going even. And then I'm gonna use my offset spatula. Try to push it out towards the edge, but not going too far. Now, if your brownie is cold, it'll set up really fast. But because it's still kind of warm, it's spreading out a little bit more than I wanted it to. That looks good to me. We still have about half of our ganache left. This is not going to go to waste. It is a great fudge. You reheat it and pour it over ice cream. Now, more waiting. We got to pop this into the refrigerator and let it get completely solid before we top it with our mascarpone tiramisu cream. It's time to make our mascarpone cream. Now, I just have a double boiler here. I'm going to be setting on 3 egg yolks. I'm going to be beating them until they're thick and pale with half of the amount of sugar we need. So basically 2 tablespoons in here, 2 tablespoons for our heavy cream. And I meant to sift that first. Let's give this a whiz. I'm gonna turn this down just to make sure it doesn't get too crazy. Give it a little mix first. Okay, as you can see, it's very thick now. We'll give this one more scrape down and a little bit more whisking just to make sure all our sugar is dissolved. We want it nice and fluffy and thick. Now we're gonna mix in our mascarpone cheese. And this has been out at room temperature for a couple of hours so that it's nice and soft. Give that a whisk. Hopefully it doesn't go everywhere. Okay, give it a scrape down. Okay, and then we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of dark rum to this. You can add any flavoring you want, or you can leave it out altogether. Okay, now we gotta whip up our whipped cream, which is still in the refrigerator because you want it nice and cold. And then you are going to fold it into this mixture. Okay, we got our cup of heavy cream. I'm gonna put in the rest of the sugar. I'm gonna sift it. You're just gonna whisk this and put a little bit of vanilla in there. That's it. It's almost there. I'm gonna add in a teaspoon of vanilla. You can also use coffee or rum extract, whatever you'd like. You want this at stiff peaks, which means it won't fall out if you turn it upside down. Now we got our mascarpone mixture that is semi-cool, and we're going to put half this in there for right now, and then we're going to fold in the rest. Now surprisingly, this isn't the hardest way to make a mousse. It's an even harder way. Okay, the rest in, fold in the rest of the whipped cream. Okay, we are completely solid here. Handy dandy offset spatula. I'm gonna push it right to the edge. Smooth out the top. There you go. Now we're gonna have to let this chill for several hours, unfortunately. We'll be back to pop it out and slice it up. So my tiramisu brownie has been chilling for a few hours now. To make this look more like tiramisu, we are going to dust the top with cocoa powder. So I have a sifter here, and I'm gonna get a scoop of cocoa powder. Try not to get it everywhere. Carefully dust the top. Okay, so our top is all dusted. I am going to release this pan and hope it comes out well. I have not actually made this before. I tested and tested the brownies over and over again until I got a nice fudgy brownie. So let's release this bad boy and see what it looks like. It's gonna come off. There we go. Oh. So there is tiramisu covered brownie. Looks pretty good. Let's give it a slice. Talking macros on this guy, the brownie itself, 16 for the whole brownie. Depending on add other ingredients is gonna change the macros obviously. But if you do it into 12, that is 1.3 grams of net carbs. And that's what I think I'm gonna cut this into. Score it in half again, and then into thirds. So if you want to make this tiramisu brownie for a 1/12 of this, it is 2.5 grams of net carbs. Cut nice. Oh, that looks good. If you just want to do the ganache in the brownie, it only adds half a carb for your slice of brownie. If you just want to put the ganache on it, it is time to try this. Tiramisu is one of my favorite desserts, so combining these two, gonna be awesome. Wow, that's good. Espresso ganache, fudgy chocolatey brownie with the cream on top. You can literally put any cream you want. If you want to just do whipped cream on top, or you can just whip up some cream cheese and some sweetener and fold in the whipped cream. It'll just be like a cheesecake mousse on top of your brownie. Oh my god, there are so many options for this. It'll be good in any configuration you guys can come up with. It's so delicious. Wow. That is so good. I hope you guys try out this brownie recipe. Another great thing, warm it up with some ice cream on top. Oh man. These last great out on the countertop, and they're better at room temperature. If you do leave it in the fridge, I would suggest popping it in the microwave for a couple of seconds before you eat it because it gets like softer. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you do, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, share with your friends for their birthdays. They might want some delicious keto brownies. And I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys.